the craziest sequence of events. So we're like hiding in that train yard. A train slowly starts moving. Hop in the car and you're like, okay. And then the train keeps going into the city further and further and further and just stops. Wait for a bit and then like peek out of the car. And then I just see like one of those mean-ass looking cops on a quad bike, you know, like sunglasses, just like whoa, whoa. And then I see barbed wire everywhere. And I realized out of experience of like train yards and everything that I'm in the worst place I could be, which is like a high security train yard.
Tristan Bouan is a French filmmaker who grew up across 12 countries. His debut feature film, Trainhopper, is a poetic coming-of-age story exploring freedom, attachment, and impermanence. After years of riding freight trains across America to outrun tragedy, a young drifter must settle in Durham, North Carolina, for a project that challenges his freedom and forces him to confront the past he tried to bury. He made this film when he was a student at Duke University, graduated in 2018, and now works as a creative director abroad in Lisbon. I present to you Tristan. Tristan, you recently finished your first ever feature film. What does it take to accomplish something like that?
A bit of imagination and lots of persistence. But it really depends on what type of debut you're doing, really. Like if you're doing a debut in my style with like low funding and like more guerrilla, then yes, imagination, a lot of persistence. But if you're doing it, you know, with like the proper way with connections and a bigger budget and everything, just connections.
But as a filmmaker, like what philosophy did you need to have?
Realization that this is the first one in a series. So not trying to see this as like the film that's the best film I will make my whole life, but I mean, obviously trying to make a good film, but also making this film in a way that I'm going to learn all or most of the things I need to know for the future films. So seeing it both as a film and a film school.
Was there a fire that you needed though?
A fire?
Yeah.
I think when I was at Duke, I initially got to college and the plan was to work in the UN and all of that. And then halfway through college, I was thinking that this wasn't really for me and didn't want to feel like a cog in the machine. So when I realized like that film could be a proper option, and I decided to pursue it straight out of college, I think that was the fire. I felt like I really had to follow through and not just half-ass it.
Well, I want to dive deeper into that because you sent me a 17-page document. Yeah. I read it.
How was that?
I did. I mean, there were some great stories in it, and I really want to hear them from your voice. Okay. Because reading them, I could hear your voice in it, but I was like, I want to hear it live because there are some stories that are kind of insane.
Yeah, it is.
But let's just dive into Trainhopper because, you know, I watched the film. It was wonderful, and you know, it's impressive to see a fellow like Duke alum like have this big of an accomplishment and being so young at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, inspiring just for other Duke alums and filmmakers.
Well, I mean, that's nice to hear because like it took so long. At some point during the years, I was like, wow, it's such a failure. So it's nice to hear.
But yeah, let's talk Trainhopper. What was the origin story for it?
The origin story, I would say like the spine of the film I actually had in my mind for a long time. I think since I was 15 or so. Just had this imagination of a young boy with a camera. It was set in completely different countries. The story was slightly different, but the main idea was kind of there. And then when I got to Durham, North Carolina, that is, it's a really interesting town because up until the early 20th century, 80% of world tobacco came out of that town. So it was a very, very industrial city. In the middle of the city, there was this train track. I mean, there was 3 train tracks originally. And with trains just flying in and out. And to this day, there's a train that just goes through town like 12, 15 times a day, blows its horn, or toots its horn, and it's super, super loud. And so when I came to Durham, that train struck me a lot, and I felt like the idea of the film was very compatible with that symbol of a train coming through the town. So I wanted to marry them, and a Trainhopper was the perfect character to do that. So that's why it was like an original idea adapted to Durham, became Trainhopper.
Can you talk more about how, like, the ideas of trains moving in and out of cities, like how you resonated with that in your personal life? The
idea of Trainhopper really is how it's related to me deeply is the idea that when you move to a different country, you have to like let go of your attachments and move on, essentially. And so trains, I felt, were very compatible to that, because I don't know if you've ever been in a train, especially when you were young, maybe to this day, and like you put your head on the window, and if you focus on the train tracks next to you, like everything around is like moving and blurry, and the train tracks don't move. Like they're very, very slow. So yeah, so that imagery, and like sometimes if you follow that, then it'll like go to a different, it'll split or it'll merge, and so I felt like seeing those train tracks was a very, very good analogy of life. You know, like you're on your life, and then if you go to a different country, like you peel off and you stop at a little station for like a few years, and up you go back on your tracks. And everyone has their own tracks. So in general, and like for a long time, I felt like train and train tracks really resonated with me very much in terms of the trajectory of your life. So I felt like the idea of a train hopper who's on his track, stops in that town for a little bit, and then like maybe moves on, maybe stays. It married with the theme of life very well.
Did that theme kind of like prompt you to become a filmmaker as well?
No, no, no. I think I felt the urge of being a filmmaker first. I just think because I was very young, and I wanted to say something true. I didn't realize I wasn't trying to say something true. I was just opening my gut and putting stuff on the page. And I think what came out was just the main thing that had been in my life for the past 20 years, which was I had moved around a lot. I think that's what I had felt the most. Yeah.
But what was like the first moment that you knew, like, I want to be a filmmaker?
Well, I started making movies when I was like 12 with my cousins, and I just kept loving it, loving it. Just did small, stupid videos until late, late, late. So if there was one moment, I would say it's that end of my sophomore year, I was already starting of maybe going to film, and then I still went to Myanmar to do a summer internship, which was very, very interesting. It was like I was giving lots of responsibilities. It was super, super interesting. However, I noticed that whenever I had free time, or whenever someone was not looking over my shoulder, I would like scribble in this notebook ideas for Trainhopper. And that's when I realized, okay, that's maybe where I should go.
The story was just like, brewing in your mind, basically. Like, it wasn't even like you were thinking like it was a film, but it was like the story of a train hopper, like that was kind of...
Yeah, by then the story of the film was brewing in my mind.
Gotcha.
By then, like end of sophomore year, I had this idea of making a feature in Durham.
So I want to dive into kind of how you eventually did make the film, because I mean, it was kind of a crazy process. But let's start off with like, before you really got into anything, I want to ask, like, did you have any sort of Hollywood experience? Did you have any like people that helped you with like starting out, or was it just basically you?
No, I was very, very lucky, because when I was at Duke, I did a program called Duke in LA, which is you spent about a semester taking half of the classes with Duke professors, half the classes with USC professors, so that's the University of Southern California. They have a really, really good film school. Then what I did at that university is that we were only limited to 2 classes. So we only had 2 credits to afford. But there was a lot more classes I wanted to take. So I went to all the classes I wanted to take. And then after class, the first class, I asked the professor, hey, is there any chance I can just take your class without being enrolled in it? And some of the professors were very kind, and they were like, yeah, no worries, don't worry about it. And then the professors were like, no, it's not possible. Then I would use my credits on them. So I was able to take a lot more classes than I was legally allowed to. And then the other thing we did is that we had to take an internship during our semester. And I really, really wanted to work on the set of a film. But during all the interviews, they all told me like, either we're not shooting or it's just not possible. But there was this one internship this one company that told me that they were about to shoot a film with Denzel Washington and Colin Farrell. So I told them, can I please get on that? And they're like, no, it's not possible. So I never take a no for an answer until it's a final big fat
That's
no.
a good thing.
So I told myself that, you know what, I'm still going to get that internship and then maybe figure my way on. So I go to the internship, I spend a couple of weeks there, and eventually I kind of figure out who the producer that's in charge of that movie is. So I talk with him, I do him a couple of favors, I file his tax returns, I comp all his receipts, just like taking crumpled receipts, like putting them properly in the notebook, and and eventually I asked him, is it possible that, do you think you could get me just a small role on set of the film? And he called the producers, and he got me the role of an like unpaid PA on sets, and that was huge because, like, to answer your question more directly, I don't think I could have done Trainhopper without that experience because it was crazy sets. It was a mid-budget, like a $30-40 million budget film, so it's not huge. It's not Marvel, but it's not small. And all the crew members were top. Like the DP was the DP of There Will Be Blood, won an Oscar. The grip team, Ian Kincaid, who's become a friend since, he shot all the Tarantinos, a lot of Scorsese's. The grip team, same. They usually work together, so they were like the top of Hollywood. And because I was a PA, I could move around set very easily, and because I was unpaid / an intern, I could move even easier because I didn't have like a real role. I was kind of unfireable, so I really enjoyed that freedom. And so what I essentially did is I came to set with a notebook every day, and I would ask every department questions and then like note down. So if, for example, they were lighting a scene and they finished lighting the scene while they were waiting for Denzel to come on set, I would go to the gaffer or whoever and be like, just tell me like, why did you light it this way? And I would like in the notebook like make a lightning diagram and then like write the things I was learning. And so essentially by the time I came off the set, I had a really good idea of how a set actually worked, because you kind of forget that when you're young, a set is a bit of a mystery. You're trying to get a peek and like you don't really know how it works out, especially on the big ones. But so I had a good idea of how it worked, which means that from that point onwards, I was able to like minimize it a lot, like just bring it down to bare bones. And especially at Duke, I was working pretty much exclusively with people who had no set experience. So I was able to tell them like what to do or to direct the set. So yeah, without that experience, no chance I could have made Trainhopper.
I can imagine like the Duke version of you, like all the way back then, like running around on an LA set, like asking people. Like, I can see that in my mind.
I also had like really long hair, and
Yeah.
I was a student and like international, so I was poor, so I had no car, couldn't Uber to set, so I had a longboard. So I got recognized on set pretty quickly as like the French guy with long hair who just pop out of. We were shooting all over LA. I would just appear with my longboard and just getting down. Yeah, it was really funny. I had a good time on that set.
Okay, so I mean that definitely informed a lot of like the technicals in Trainhopper, but when you were prepping everything, like casting, producing, all of these things, what was the philosophy that you kind of had going into the project?
It was a mixture of delusion in the sense that I didn't know. I didn't fully realize the scope of the work it was going to take, but I was not scared because I had, like you said, that deep fire. And my mentality was, I'm just going to out hustle everyone. I'm just going to work so fucking hard on this. That's no problem is a problem. And it really works, like if we like move fast forward like 5 years later down the line, where I was a lot more tired and a lot more exhausted. I remember at one point working with like a 15-year-old cousin who's a genius, and he was like helping me do some VFX shit. Yeah, so that's really funny. But like he, at one point during that process, reminded me of one of the ways I felt in the beginning of the process, which is that there's never a problem, there's never an obstacle. Like obstacles would pop up in his way, where at that point, I would be like, oh, move off the computer, take some time to breathe, like go, like he would just like, okay, and like, poof, and away. And that's the mentality we had in the beginning. It's just, we're gonna figure it out, and the problem is not a problem. It's just, how do we get around it? Boom, move on.
That's the persistence mentality, right? There.
Yeah.
So also before you actually wrote the script, right? You assembled your team of producers and your cast. Why was that? And I guess tell me about that process.
If you go the traditional route, where you write a script with a character, and then you want to find an actor to fill that role, most often, if you want it to work well, you're gonna have to find a really good actor. That's costs a lot of money and is also hard to find in Durham, North Carolina. The other way to go about it is the way I went, which is I went to all the Duke professors and I kept asking like, who is your best actor? And all of them would say Alonzo Saxon. So I met Alonso, I started going to his shows, like all of them. Like if he had like a small end of semester class show, I would be there. Because I really, really wanted to see his work, what his strengths were, just kind of get an idea of who he was. And then I was able to adapt the screenwriting to fit his role more. So to play to his strengths. And that allows a much better performance or ease of performance because you've played around his strengths.
So you had your cast there, and you knew who your protagonist was.
Yes.
But you have this crazy story, and I want to hear it from you. Like, how did you then prepare to write Trainhopper?
Oh, well, the first thing is I felt like I needed to learn how to I needed to learn how to train hop.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, I couldn't write a film about train hopper and never having train hopped. So that was at the beginning. That was before I wrote the script. And that was interesting learning how to train hop because I had no idea. So there is in the train hopper myth, whatever, this book that they pass on to each other, and it's, I don't think still to this day, not available on the internet. So I had no access to it. So I had to scrape a lot of information. For example, which type of cars you hop on and which you don't. There's like very, very heavy consequences on going off the wrong cars, that you could die, you could use your legs. So you have to be careful about that. Then you have to learn where to train hop, which is tricky because, you know, you might think first thing is train yards, but often there's security. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna get caught. So I started in the middle of a forest at a siding, which was where there's two tracks next to each other. And often freight trains have lesser priority than Amtraks. So if you have a freight train and he knows that Amtrak is coming, he's gonna put himself on the siding and the Amtrak's gonna fly through and then move forward. So in the beginning, I spent days and days in that forest just waiting for a train to come. It was really, really hot. And eventually I got on one. And then I got on the train, started moving, very excited. And then I forgot like what happens.
Yeah.
How do I get off?
Yeah.
And so it went like about like 150, 200 miles on the way to South Carolina. And then like in the middle of the night stops, I get off the train. And then I was like, okay, what do I do now? I had no way to get back to Durham. And so I was halfway to South Carolina where I had a friend living. So I just told myself, you know what, I'm here, might as well like continue the story. So I just walked a couple of miles, went to a gas station, ripped a piece of cardboard, wrote like I-95 South on one side, Charleston on the other, and just hitchhiked the rest of the way to Charleston. And yeah, that was the end of my first train hopping journey.
Well, I mean, why did you decide to hitchhike back? Like, why didn't you?
Because I was like, fuck it, you know, like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
halfway through, like the adventure has started. It's also that friend was like, oh yeah, you know, like, oh yeah, because that friend days earlier had gone to his home and had invited me. And I was like, no, like I need to work, I need to like figure out this train hopping situation. And then he told me, okay, and I was like, but I'll figure my way there. And I was like, yeah, sure you will. Like there's no buses, there's nothing. So I just also wanted to see the surprise on his face when I popped up. That was a good one.
I'm curious to just hear from you because I know some of those stories when you were, you know, doing this and asking for rides, like, were crazy. So can you tell me about how you eventually got back and just like the people you met?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually like to see the list, but like there was the part I really liked the most about hitchhiking from that train hopping spot to Charleston was really the people I met. It was my first time, I would say, hitchhiking in the US on that scale, and just the diversity of people that pick you up. First of all, what I really like about hitchhiking is it's what I call like a natural filter for assholes. So you know, like people who pick you up are going to be pretty chill most of the time. And so they were really, really, yeah, they are.
Yeah. Except for the 1% that might want to like do some
Kill
shit.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, so I was picked up by really random people. Like there were a couple of immigrants with like 4 kids in the background. And like the parents didn't speak English at all. So the kids were speaking to me. And like 20 minutes into the ride, I realized that they're driving to the hospital to give birth. I'm like, you stopped to pick me up? That's so
wild.
cute.
Yeah.
Then there was this ex-missionary from Chile who had like crazy stories. And I got picked up by a cop at one point who drove me at a gas station. Then at that gas station, this mother and grandma like were eyeing me out from the opposite side of the parking lot. Like I was like, what do they want from me? You know? And they eventually come and they're like, you have drugs? I was like, no. Like, you have a gun? I was like, no. They're like, where are you going? And I told Charleston, and they drove me 100 miles. So, you know, like just, yeah, I mean, I understand. If you're in the US, people can have guns, but still, it was a bit off-putting. And then I forget some of the other stories, but oh yeah, there was this very attractive middle-aged woman who, like, we talked for a while, and a week later she sends me a friend request on
That's
Snapchat.
crazy. That's
I
insane.
love that, and I still have her on Snapchat.
Yeah. You ever text her? You know.
I think she
Slide
probably
up?
like wished me like good luck a couple of
Okay.
times. I'm like, hey, hope all is well. Yeah, I think she lives in Fayetteville.
Okay.
So,
Oh, that's crazy. Place.
yeah, I mean, if I ever go through Fayetteville again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some other stories, but I forget.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like.
Oh no, wait, so one last funny
go
story,
ahead,
which
go
was
for
really
it.
funny. Is at one point I get picked up by this crazy redneck. He was the person
Yeah.
who was like the closest to me, like he's gonna kill me. Like, you know, didn't speak much, had his like dirty socks drying on the dashboard, just was non-verbal. I was like, oh, holy fucking shit, I'm gonna die. And then at first he tries to drop me off in the middle of the highway. I'm like, bro, like no, like this is not a good spot. So he drops me off on the first stop north of Charleston, which I didn't know was very, very dangerous. So like, keep in mind, I had really a baby face and I had a little Duke t-shirt, a little backpack. So I'm in the middle of this ghetto.
Yeah.
And like, clearly, I mean, there's like, it was so funny. It was like people on wheelchairs battling each other. It was complete chaos. And so I'm like stopping, like little hitchhiking. And then this minivan screeches in front of me, like brakes. The minivan, the door like swings open. It's like a black family, or like again, like 4 or 5 kids. And the mother's like, get in, you can't be here. So like so they put me in, drove me like 5 miles out of there. And then they're like, okay, good luck. But yeah, that was...
I mean, just like the fact that you're not from America as well and decided to hitchhike in America is just because most Americans, I feel like, would never do that.
Yeah.
So like, I think it just speaks to like the spontaneity that you have and that you bring to your filmmaking, and like you truly do kind of live a life where it's like, I got to experience like the practicality of these stories, you know?
Yeah. I think in general, like, probably maybe because I moved around. Also, my father is definitely a big adventurer. Like that kind of shit is something he would do. So that it definitely came through. But I think you at one point realized that life really is GTA. Like, don't do all the crime and all of that, but a lot of the rules that we live through are very much either self-imposed or societally imposed. And so you can't just do shit, you know? Like, you can just do it. It's oftentimes more easy. And also, the crazier the stuff, the more people want to help you. So that's,
That's true.
You just do it.
For anyone that wants to do something like that, what would you tell them to prepare for?
Well, if we're talking about hitchhiking specifically, I would say if you're a woman, don't do it.
Yeah.
It sucks, but like, unless you're like a very, very safe like place. Then I would say just trust your gut a lot. If you feel something is off, don't do it. Don't feel bad about not taking a ride with someone because they stop. Like, if it feels off, invent an excuse, being, oh, I'm actually not going there. Like, oh, I'm going further. So like, this really wouldn't work. And then in terms of how to being picked up on a hitchhiking ride, I would say be presentable, like have a nice smile, and like do that. And my secret tip that I have learned after years of hitchhiking and works really, really well is like, so you do this and you're like smiling, and if there's like 3 cars coming in a row and the first car doesn't even look at you, like just like straight ignore you, pretend that that person gave a sign being like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go, and act well. You're like, oh, it's okay. So then the cars behind are like, oh, you know, the guy reacts well when you tell him you can pick it up. So he seems like a nice guy. And like, I've done that so many times. The third car, like oftentimes more than not, will stop.
That's smart.
So that's like my little trick.
That's good. So you experienced all this wild shit. How did you finally, like, eventually write the script for Trainhopper?
So I get to Duke my fall semester of my senior year, and I'm an international student. Like, I'm on the clock. I have that senior year, and then I have about 8 months after that, and then like I have to leave. Also, I want to shoot and to make this happen while I'm at Duke. because I was on full scholarship, so I have this big support. Food is taken care of, housing is taken care of. I still have access to some equipment. I have access to great people, which is the most important thing. And in general, I just have access to the support system where I'm not a college grad fresh out of school, which is a tricky situation for a lot of people. So, making a movie and that would have just been too much. So I get to do my fall semester and I have to raise the money, get the cast crew together, and write the script. So essentially, it was pure pressure. I just put myself in my room and wrote and like put index cards for every beat, and then just wrote for like 2 months, 3 months. Like that semester semester of my senior year, which is usually when a lot of seniors just party nonstop. I didn't go out once. And I didn't miss it, like all the parties at Duke are kind of repetitive. And I really had that fire. So I didn't feel any FOMO at all. I felt a drive which I probably haven't felt the same level to this point, except maybe these days. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like when you were writing, like there was an obstacle or like maybe like writer's block, or you just knew exactly like what you were gonna say?
There was no block because I had been thinking of the film for so long. So I would figure out like, okay, like years before I would be like, okay, but if this is why would this? And then I would be, oh, because this. And so then before actually writing the script, I had like a wall full of index cards with every beat, every scene. So I really knew what was happening before writing the script. I think that starting to write a script without knowing what's happening is going to be tricky, because then you are often going to write yourself in the hole, write the scene you really want, but actually shouldn't be there. So the actual writing, once there was the beats, was done.
When I watched Trainhopper, tons of locations. Like you start in a what's it called, like a train station or like a
train yard.
A train yard, tons of trains. Then we move and you're like at the top of this building in in Durham. Talk about how you actually made the production of Trainhopper like come to life.
So yeah, the production was tricky because, like I said, no one on set had set experience. Like it was just me. So the producers, they were extremely helpful because I physically couldn't do all the things without them. But mentally, I had to be on top of everything, which was a lot. So there's the locations. We can talk about that more if you want. But like location scouting, meeting the people, getting the permissions, getting the documents, getting the dates aligned. Then I had to coordinate the schedules of the actors, coordinate the schedule of the producers, coordinate my schedule. Then I had to think of the lighting of the scene. So, write it out, figure out the lighting, test it, figure out where the electricity is coming from, figure out every little piece of equipment, and props. Like I need to make sure I have every single prop, because if we get there and there's a prop missing, like I have to wait hours to get the prop. Then I have to think of the actual directing, then the actual shot list. So literally every small part had to be thought of before, which I'm quite naturally disorganized. So for this, I had to be really, really organized. So I had an Excel sheet with like every little thing. Also the weather, I was like, if it's raining, like this is what we're doing. If it's not, this is what we're doing, just to be ready for any eventuality, because North Carolina weather changes like that. So yeah, I basically had to stay really organized, but because it was just by myself and I had to do all of that, it was physically impossible for me to shoot this 2 months in a row. Not to mention we were at university with exams and like a full schedule. So what we did is we most often shot like for 2-3 days in a row, and then we would stop for a week, or we would shoot at most for like 1-2 weeks in a row. But this was during the summer when we didn't go at Duke, when we weren't studying at Duke. So yeah.
You didn't shoot chronologically, right? Because
No.
you have a cast of 3 main actors and you have kind of central locations. And so tell me about how you planned all of that, like with the actors and the locations you had. Because I'm sure like you didn't have infinite access to some of those locations.
Yeah, so for example, some of the locations we had a time limit, like the city center, which is that big Durham skyscraper. Um, Once I met the financier and he gave his okay, I had to meet with the actual managers of the construction sites, which are classic, like North Carolina, big mustache, like big guys. And then they gave me 3 days spread over 2 or 3 weekends. And that was it. We had to shoot on these days. So that made it simple.
How long did this process take over? Like,
The shooting,
yeah, yeah.
like it was spread. I would say we started in like spring of 2018 and we finished like June of 2019. So spread over a year, but with pretty massive breaks in between. Like sometimes breaks of like 3-4 months without shooting, just while I was either at Duke or it was summer and everyone was gone.
I mean, feature film, like the question on everybody's mind is like, how do you finance something like that as well? Can you talk about that process?
We financed it, I would say mainly, at least for production, in 2 ways. One is that we launched a Kickstarter and raised $27,000, which was nice. The other thing is I was lucky to go to Duke on a full scholarship, and I had another small scholarship. And what they did is they accumulated. So every semester I was getting cash back. So by the end of my career, I think I had probably like 8K saved. So that went into that. And what we did is that we bought the camera, which was a C300 Mark II, worth about $10,000, and we bought 3 Cook S4i Minis, which were about 7,000, maybe slightly higher each. And so we bought those. So because we were shooting over so long, renting a camera each time would have been makes no sense. So bought them, used them, and then once I was finished with them, I resold them. So then I used that money to like finance whatever was needed. And then we eventually ran out. And so for post-production, I did a ton of jobs, like really fun jobs where I could like gain new experience for new characters. And I paid for the film through that. So yeah, for years and years, Trainhopper was a big hole in the pocket. And yeah, I kept everything I made kept going into that.
But it's crazy because it's a feature film and a tiny budget at the end of the day. Like, how much do you think you spent? Like 30, 40K, like total?
Probably 50, yeah, 50K in total. But it's true that it's like, especially now with inflation and everything, like you could not do the film for 50K. There's just no chance. Especially, I mean, even back then I was saying that if I had to make that film without being at Duke, I think it would have cost me like 3 times the amount.
Really? Because of the gear rental, or?
No, not even. I had little gear, but the access to the people,
Okay.
Just the support system that was there. Yeah, I didn't have to pay for a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think so. And if I had to pay for like housing and food and all of that, that'd be a lot more.
So this is a question for like more of the camera nerds, but or the lighting people. But I'm curious, like with such a tight budget, how did you light your scenes?
Remember when I was saying I was on that set in LA, like big Hollywood movie, and I was just really shocked to see that the lighting was kind of easy. Obviously if they're shooting outside at night, they have these huge condors with like massive lighting rigs. But the indoors, what they had were these light mats, which looked like rectangles, like very, very thin LED panels. And I just would put them on C-stand, put like 1, 2, 3, 4, however much they needed, and just like throw it like that. Of course, like direct the lights and everything. And then that gaffer, Ian Kincaid, who's like a legend and like has worked on the best films, I talked with him a lot. He just told me that the most important thing is really just to direct the light. And to like play with the light you have and just direct the light. So, for example, if we look at the interrogation scene, if you want, I can send you some footage of that. All I had was a lights mat over them where the C stands, and I just had it was draped a bit on the sides, just so the light was more directional. And then in that room, there were already like spotlights in the roof. If you turn them on, they were super, super ugly. Like it was a classic like fluorescent room. So I had like film tinfoil, and I made cylinders about like this wide, about this long, so that those spotlights changed from ugly light that went everywhere to just very directional light. So just with the light mats and just with playing with the available light, but just directing it, that allowed me to get away with like a lot more. Especially because I was doing that. Like I had to come to that set the night before, like 3 a.m. to do these things, get the set ready. So I can't really afford time-wise or money-wise to do big, expensive things. And then natural light, by far. Like I shot with natural light a lot.
And for all of that gear, did you rent it or like did you also just purchase it?
I bought the light mat. It was like $2,000, $2,500. Sold it for $1,800 after 2 years. So like no loss. And for natural light, all we had was we went to Lowe's and we had the huge insulation pad, which is like reflective on one side and just white on the other side.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's all you need. Like that thing was amazing, indestructible. We just put it in the pickup truck. It was in the pickup truck, in the back of the pickup truck for 2 years. And we just shot everything with that.
I love this because I feel like if you're a filmmaker who doesn't know like how to do this and you feel like you can't because you don't have the financial means to, this is great information. And I love the advice of like buy equipment that you know you can sell because I do the same thing. And I know that I'm not gonna lose that much value over like 5 years if I want to just resell it.
Well, the camera lost a lot of value very quickly. The lenses didn't, but the camera, like we bought for 10K. I think I sold it for like 4.5K.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but that's the way it was at that point.
Yeah, my philosophy though is to buy used and sell used. So never buy new.
Gotcha.
If possible. Gotcha. If possible. Okay, you have this crazy story though on set. It's the one where you're getting chased by a cop, right? Like. Yeah.
Of all the shooting, I would say that the craziest sequence of events was when we did this road trip on the West Coast with Alonso, the main actor, and Charlie Graham, one of the producers. And so it started off really, really strong because by that point I had sold my car because I had to afford some stuff that I wasn't able to afford anymore. And so we rented up a beat up pickup truck on Turo. I'll send you some pictures, but it was like just white, and like with bumps everywhere, just the seat was uncomfortable. And we rented, go to the airport to pick up Alonso, who's coming off a 6-hour flight. And like, boom, like we're head off 12 hours. We're driving from LAX to the border of Utah and Colorado, where I had found on Google Maps, like this cliff with a canyon in it with nothing in it except a train track. So I was like, oh, that looks cool. So we drive there, film, goes relatively well, and then we drive the next day about 8 hours to Salt Lake City, Provo to be exact, because I knew again from Google Maps that there was a train yard there from which I could hop on, and then the train went over the flats, the salt flats of Utah. You've probably seen some pictures of that. It looks super cool. And so in my mind, I was like, wow, we're gonna get on that train, and then we're gonna go over the salt flats, and like it's gonna reflect. So there's gonna be no horizon, no ground. It's gonna be a perfect mirror with the train. It's gonna look so cool. So we're like hiding in that train yard, but we wait. There's just no trains leaving. So we wait like 20 hours. Like Alonso and I are hiding in the bush, waiting. Charlie's bringing us food discreetly from time to time. Yeah, I love him for that. And then eventually, on the morning of the next day, a train slowly starts moving. So like Alonso and I run, hop in the car, and we're like, okay, hell yeah, we've done this. So we start shooting some scenes, and I'm tracking our progress on Google Maps. And then just as we were supposed to go all over the flats, the train like takes a turn, and goes down straight back to the city. So I'm like, oh fuck, at first I'm like so sad, I'm missing the Salt Lake flats, that sucks, and then the train keeps going into the city further and further and further, and just stops, and like fully stops. And so I kind of like just wait for a bit and then like peek out of the car. It was one of those cars, we're just hiding with like a bunch of lumber. And then I peek out, and then I just see like one of those mean ass looking cops on a quad bike, like sunglasses, just like whoa, just driving past. I see like dogs further. I'm like, holy shit! Like, and then I see barbed wire everywhere. I go back on my phone. I look, and I realize, out of experience of like train yards and everything, that I'm in the worst place I could be, which is like a high security train yard where they bring on cars, TVs, and it's high security because they don't want people to steal them. Like they put them on trains, which from that point onwards, I'm going 100 miles an hour, never stopping. So I'm an international student in a very, very high security train yard in Utah, where like there are the highest consequences for trespassing and thing. And the only guy I'm with is a black guy. So like it is like the worst case scenario. So like, there's just like there's no option of getting caught. So on Google Maps, I see that about 50 yards from us there is this patch of vegetation, and in the middle of that patch of vegetation is like a small stream, and that small stream goes under a few industrial bridges. So they bypass the barbed wire. So at the same time, the cop with the quad is still around, but it's getting closer to noon, and Alonso and I are cooking. Like this is Utah in June, so like it's getting really, really hot. So at one point I'm like, okay, like we're just gonna have to make a run for it. So we just wait till I don't hear the quad, and then I tell Alonso, okay, like let's get off discreetly. We get off discreetly, and then we just book it. Like we just throw ourselves in the vegetation, and we realize there was just 90% thorns. So we were just like for like 15 minutes. It takes us 15 minutes to walk like 20 meters, like moving like thorns by thorns. Then we get into the stream, which is disgusting because it's an industrial zone, so it's just not a nice stream. In the beginning, it's fine, goes up to my thigh, and then like eventually it goes high, and then like by the 50th yard or meter, I have to like take $20,000 of gear I haven't put on top of my head, just like move forward. Thankfully, Charlie had been like tracking us and had been letting know what we were doing. So like as soon as we find a way out of the fence, he's waiting for us. Boom, we drive away. So we go like get breakfast, everything's fine. That's like only the beginning, because then we had immediately to drive away like 150 miles to this isolated valley in Utah to shoot some stuff with the train during the day. That goes well. We shoot, like we wait for hours for a train, like usual. And then like because this was a lot of high stakes situation, we had bought a bit of weed from LA and like we were smoking it. We go back to the motel. We're like, okay, we're gonna get a bit of sleep because the next day we have to train hop again. Alonso at that point is like, Tristan, fuck you. Like I'm done. Like, not train hopping again. So like, you know what? That's fair. Like I might not figure it out. I'm like, okay, I can probably just get some shots. He doesn't need to be there. Like I'll figure it out. So like, okay, I'll train hop tomorrow at 5 a.m. I'll just go on the train, hop, and then I'll meet you guys later, and then we drive to the final location. So we go to the motel, like excited to get a bit of sleep. I go to the room, drop the camera bags, and then Charlie comes into the motel like white. And I'm like, oh, no, what happened? And he's like, I just locked the doors and the keys inside. And I'm like, fuck. Like, okay, that's bad, but it's not the worst. And then like we'll just call someone. So we call a locksmith, and the locksmith is like, no, I'm sorry. Like this is in the middle of nowhere, like a village with maybe like 1,500 people live in the middle of Utah. There's one road in, there's one road out. That is it. The locksmith is like, at this time of day, like I'm not going there. Like you're just gonna have to call the cops. Charlie gets even whiter and tells me that he left the pot of weed in the car open, and with all that heat, it's probably stinking in there.
Yeah.
And this is Utah. Like they do not like weed. They're not tolerant for this. So Charlie tells me like, I can't deal with this. Like because he was also still at Duke. He was younger than me, and like he was helping me a lot. I was like, you know what, that's fair. Alonso's black, so I'm like, just like go hide in your room. Like you're not coming out. There's no chance of that. Because I mean, he would be even in a worse situation than me and international students. So I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have to figure a way out of this. So I sit in the parking lot, and I'm like, man, like I could be in jail in a few hours, but like there's just no way out of this. And like breaking the window, just could have been an option, but in retrospect. So anyway, the cop pulls. I'm like, okay, like stress situation. Comes out of the door. It's a middle-aged woman. I'm like, okay, that's good. That's like for some reason like that can work better than if it's like tough guy like that just does his thing and we can't figure shit out. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can talk my way out of it. So like, I immediately cranked the French accent out by like 30%. And which did its thing. She's like, oh, I've always wanted to go to Paris. No. So we're talking about Paris. And like, meanwhile, the way that she gets into cop cars is that she has a little metal piece that she fits between the window, and it's a little hook. And she's trying to hook like the lock. And she's not really good at it, And she had given me her flashlight, and I was right next to her, like flashing, so she could see what she was doing. So at one point, I'm like, you want me to give it a try? And then and she was like, oh, sure, So she takes the flashlight, I take the metal pick, and then I realized that I could actually get this pretty easily. But I'm like, huh. And I tell her, like, I can't really see what you're doing. Like, do you mind going on the other side of the car to just flash it better? So like she goes, as soon as she's on the other side of the car flashing me, I unhook the thing, open the door really quickly. This wave of weed just like goes in my face. I take the key, slam the door. And by the time she goes around, I'm like trying to get the smell out of everywhere. She comes back. I'm like, thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much, so much. I lock the door and I go back in. And like, then so like, okay, that was like a crisis averted. She leaves, everything's fine. I sleep for 4 hours. I tell Charlie, like, I'm gonna drive to the train yard of that village. I'm gonna put the car right here. And then I'm gonna hop on the yard, I'm gonna hop on the train. I'll text you where I am, you find me. I sleep for 4 hours. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, this is like my now 72 hours, like, dead. But I wake up at 4 a.m., go to that yard, park the car next to the track, which was a terrible mistake, hop on the train, drive like 2 hours, which was great. It's like get amazing shots, and then the train stops in the middle of the desert. I hop off, no reception. So I have to walk an hour, go on top of a hill, call Charlie. Charlie comes eventually, and then him and Alonso are panicked. And then I was like, what happened? And when they went to pick up the car, there was the car, and there's 3 cop cars around it. Because of course, in that tiny village of 1,500 people in Utah, when a car just shows up at 5 a.m. next to the train yard, it's really, really suspicious. So Charlie was really, really smart about it. And he invented some story about how I went running and I just left the car there. But as he's going to pick me up out of that town, a cop car follows them for like 10 miles. Then eventually stops, they pick me up. But then we realize that to go where we have to go, there's no way other than to go back to that town. So we drive through that town. Cop was waiting for us, follows us through the town. I'm like, man, he's gonna arrest us. And like, even if we don't go to jail, if he stops to arrest us and like talk, like we have to be 700 miles away by sunsets, by mid-afternoon. Like, otherwise it's game over, like we really need that scene because the next day Alonso and Charlie were flying out from LAX, so we don't have time. He follows us through town, follows us 10 miles out, and eventually peels off. So like, okay, from now on it's like easy. But it was not, obviously. So like we're driving, and like about 300 mile, the car starts shaking a lot. It's like we can't figure out what's happening. So it's shaking. And then at one point I'm driving 60 miles an hour on this desert road. Thank God, for some reason I had like 2 hands on the wheel, because usually I had like 1 hand. I have 2 hands, and then out of nowhere I lose total control in the back, and like basically what happened is the tire exploded. Not went flat, like exploded. Like, so I'm like trying to control the car, I manage to control it, pull it to the side, we go back, and then I see the tire just split open, and the metal frame around the tire torn apart. Like, the explosion was brutal. So I see that, and I'm like dejected, I'm disgusted. I'm like, fuck, like there's no way out of this. I'm in the middle of the desert. There's no way I can fix this. Not only are we not gonna make that shot, which was super important, but Alonso and Charlie are probably gonna miss their flight, because I don't see how we're back in LA tomorrow either. Like, this is in Arizona or Utah or I forget where. Just around the time I'm realizing the consequences of this pickup truck pulls up behind us, and this absolute legend, which I call Arizona Tire Hero, comes. He's like wearing like checkered shirt, like big belt, this funny sunglasses, which I don't know, you would find like in a surprise gift, like a gas station. Like, just comes, like doesn't say much, looks at the damage, goes back to his pickup truck, comes up with a big toolkit, takes out his drill, drills bits in the middle frame, ties it with zip ties, goes under the truck with me, pulls off the tire, manages to fix it, puts the tire on. Less than 20 minutes after the accident, we're back on the road. So and like Charlie at one point, like Charlie and I looked at each other and like we're like, holy fucking shit! Like the luck that we just had is incredible because we could have waited hours on the desert roads to see someone. Not only didn't we wait, we like the first person we saw stops, fixes the thing, we're gone. We drive full speed because at that point like we were like really close to sunset. We got full speed across like Arizona, across Utah. We get to Arizona to that other location in the middle of nowhere, which was a bridge crossing a canyon, no other things around. And just as we get there, the sun is setting. It's like a stunning shot. I put Alonso there, and we get the shots, which if we had gone earlier, we would have maybe shot earlier when it wasn't as beautiful. So we get this, a train comes just around sunset, just when I wanted to. It was like pure serendipity. And then like, that was the end. Like we put the stuff back in the car, we drive 12 hours to LAX, and that was the end. So that was like 5 days of, or even 4, I forget, of like intense filming.
So many ways like it could have gone wrong.
So many ways it could have gone wrong, and so many ways it went right. You know, so like that 5 days is when I really realized that maybe I have someone up there looking for me.
Yeah, it made you religious.
Yeah, maybe because like I just got lucky after situation after situation. Yeah, to the point where it's like it can't just be luck. You know, it has to be something else.
It's beautiful to hear the story because it's just like with filmmaking, I feel like this happens. You hear this kind of story from every filmmaker. You know, and like the way the requirements to make something as an indie filmmaker is just so tumultuous that you have to face all of these risks. But somehow we're all like lucky enough to just get by narrowly and like, you know, find those perfect moments.
Yeah, and often those perfect moments you end up with like little gems that you would have not thought about. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I recently saw this thing where it's like, for a lot of the greatest films, it's like the constraints are what made it great in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, and so filmmaking is kind of shaped by these risks that you have to take.
Yeah.
What are the lessons, you know, from all of these crazy stories and experiences of making Trainhopper? Like, what are the lessons that you took away?
I think it's just a lesson on the creative process in general, and on a long creative process. And actually not just creative process, I would say the process of building something. Because, you know, if the short videos, the process was similar-ish, but much faster. When it's long in that way, you have delayed gratification, and in between that initial happiness of working on the project and the gratification, which usually you get a lot faster, you have this like valley of death, which is like a place where you're gonna get lost at some points. You know, you're gonna lose sight of the vision you had in the beginning and like where you're heading. But that valley is where, in retrospect, all of the learning is happening. Not necessarily just about the actual process of filmmaking, but as a person, because yeah, you're gonna be asking, you're gonna go through cycles of this is amazing, this is shit. You're gonna go through a cycle of feeling good, of not feeling, of not feeling as good, and then you're gonna put yourself into question a lot. You're gonna think of not only the way you think, not only of the way you did things, but also of some personal stuff. I think just when you're doing a long artistic or building project, it's just gonna be the fattest mirror to your face about like things that you should maybe change or things that are not correct. So I would say that's the biggest thing I learned is I've gone through that whole big cycle once, and now I have a very good idea of how the cycle works, which makes me way less scared for future projects, because when you're 23 and you hit that first scary moment where you're completely lost, you don't know what the next step is, then like that's scary. But now that I've been through it, I'm like, okay, this is where we are. You know, like that's fine. Like just wait it out or just like go through it.
You have to, as a filmmaker, like just take the leap in full, like send in a lot of ways, and just like learn by trial.
Yeah, 100%.
How has this shaped like you now, just for your future projects? Like, what's on the horizon for you now? And
the way it's shaped me, I would say definitely resilience. That's for sure. A strong belief that pretty much anything is possible. And going back to what I said, I feel like the crazier stuff you try to do, the easier it is in a way, because first of all, not a lot of people are doing it. Second, people are way more inclined to help you do it. And third, it's more fun. It's more fun for me. So like I'm less inclined to get bored with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say like the last way it has shaped me is that I've been lucky to really live life the way I've wanted to in my 20s, which was across quite a few locations and and many different varied experiences. And Trainhopper has really allowed me to do that because there was this project that I was working on the whole time. I've had jobs like in a creative social agency and all that, but I've had it the whole time, which for me was a little plan to follow, and also just for the other people, it was a good like, yeah, Tristan's working on Trainhopper. Because if I wasn't working on Trainhopper, then what the fuck is Tristan doing? You know, like now he's working as a corn harvester at the farm. Now he's like a waiter. Now he's like doing this random shit, which, from my perspective, like it was the vision. Like that's exactly what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to do all these experiences. But if I was doing that like a Duke grad, you know, coming out of Duke and like just doing all these jobs without any reason, that would, you know, they'd be like, what the fuck is he doing? But because I was working on Trainhopper, I got away with like people like, oh, he's working on Trainhopper. So it really shaped me in that way. In terms of what's next, there's two opportunities, or not, two plans, and it really depends on which one I get the easiest support for. One is another feature film set in Paris, which actually it's maybe not the best idea to say on camera because I really like the idea, although I want to steal it. But it's probably the idea that's gotten best reception every time I pitch it so far. So I will see about that. And the other thing is I want to maybe shift to a more episodic YouTube at least at first, maybe eventually like on a platform. And it would be I want to cross the US by horse, and essentially not do a Bear Grylls type situation, you know, where it's just me like how can I cross this river? Where do I sleep tonight? But I really want to play to my strengths, which I think partially because of the way I grew up in many countries and just partially the way where, you know, hitchhiking, I'm very inclined to meet different people. I really wanted to go and meet people with different perspectives. So, you know, if I stop like by a farm, like just knock on the door, be like, hey, can I sleep here? Then talk to that person, even if they're like 100% MAGA, and I may be judging them or not internally, not show any of that. I want to listen to the perspectives and like really show that on camera to people outside of that whole media thing where like, you know, like one media is this way and one media is that way. So that's one of the things I want to do. Also partially because there's two big reasons. One is my ancestor on my father's side was coming on the boats with Lafayette, who helped, you know, defeat the British. So I have the little side.
Yeah.
And also also there is a famous French political scientist called Alexis de Tocqueville, who in the 18th century, I believe, not 19th, I think 18th, came to the US, spent a couple of years around the US and wrote this big fat book called Democracy in America, where he basically analyzed the US from an external perspective. And so I thought it would be interesting, because of my political science background at Duke, to do a sort of neo Alexis de Tocqueville, like have a French guy cross the US by horse or train hopping and just like analyzing from an external perspective.
What is your take for today's filmmaker in terms of how can they be the best filmmaker possible?
It really depends, because there's no one size fits all filmmakers. Like, you know, there's like filmmakers who are way more, you know, they have like a deep cinematic culture. They will know like every obscure movie that's come out like in the past years. And sure, they might do a different type of movie. And like I'm definitely more on the adventurous type or like resourceful type making movies. So you know, I can't really give advice to those people. But I would say the biggest feedback is that you don't really need sets to be that big. Like a lot of people wait to make shorts until they get like at least a budget for like a small production company, and then they make shorts, and like the credits of their shorts is like 3 times the size of my feature. Just it's not that hard. It's not that hard, and also Also, you're way better off doing it with smaller teams because I feel like you learn more. Like if you're on bigger teams, at least in the beginning, and just so we're clear, in the beginning, then you're not, you have a lot of people doing stuff for you that you have no idea, and so you're not really becoming the conductor. Like I think a film director is that you're the conductor of an orchestra, and like a good conductor, at least in film world, would at least know how each instrument works. Because if you know how each instrument works, you can really push or pull in the right direction. Versus if you have no idea how sound editing works or how color correction works, then you really don't know how to talk to the people. Like now in color correction, I can be like, oh, like like a bit too magenta. Like here, I develop the eye. In sound editing, I understand how it works. I understand how the layers work. I understand how like every little tool they did works because I was there in this room with them and I was asking them questions the whole time. So that's what I would say. Like, do small. Also, your first shorts are probably gonna be a bit shittier, so you don't need a Hollywood level production. Just make the mistakes for low cost, and then you'll figure it out. I know I'm a bad person to say this because I just went straight for the feature. I was like, and this was the first feature script I've ever written. I was like, I'm just gonna write one. Like, not gonna bother like writing scripts I'm never gonna make. Like, fuck that. But yeah, so I'm not the best example for that.
Okay, these are some great stories. Like I just loved hearing all this today. So thank you so much, Tristan.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Andrew.
I'm sure a lot of people will hear this and like find some sort of value from your story.
I hope so. That would be fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.